In high school, my sophomore year, I had a 2.0 GPA, hosted an event with Larry Wheels. My dad was like in and out of the picture, you know, in and out of jail.
Daniel is a UC Berkeley graduate, a DJ TikTok star, and even now works full-time at Google. Stick around until the end because he drops some pretty neat details, including the fact that he almost beat up Pilo, hosted an event with Larry Wheels, and nearly got kicked out of high school.
I grew up in Los Angeles, California. My dad was like in and out of the picture, you know, in and out of jail. That taught me a lot growing up, you know, different father figures and kind of different role models and learning what to do and also what not to do. And then, yeah, in high school, I moved to Whittier. Luckily there, I discovered the sport of wrestling. I would say that's when my life started, when I found some passion in something. Before that, I wasn't the strongest student in high school. Luckily graduating from UC Berkeley and then now work at Google to some hard work and some luck. But yeah, so in high school, community college was when I was thinking about my career, because there was somebody that had spoken to me and they went to Cerritos College, which is the community college I went to. And they were talking about how they were a corporate lawyer and they were able to transfer to a school in Boston, which was UMass. And that was very inspirational to me at the time because I thought in high school, my sophomore year, I had a 2.0 GPA. And I was like, oh, that's the end of my career. My life's over. So I had kind of given up already. I was like going to join the military in community college. And that's where like my academic career really started. I was involved in student government, you know, went to Sacramento a few times. And there I met some cool people and I learned like later on that it pays off just to be involved, just socialize and get to know people, because eventually somebody that I met in Sacramento ended up being my housemate once I transferred to UC Berkeley, which was pretty cool.
So to all the young viewers or just young people out there, in what ways do you think that fitness has helped you develop yourself professionally and personally?
It felt really good, like really instilled a lot of confidence in me, because before that I was not a confident person, you know, just super shy, always second guessing myself. And I think fitness, yeah, just transformed like my mindset. Definitely showed me that working hard towards something can help you pay off. Not only like, yeah, your body looks good, you also feel better, you have a lot more energy. And yeah, I feel like just all that competence you're building up just breeds confidence in return.
What do you think made your application stand out amongst the thousands of people that are applying? Well.
So honestly, my GPA wasn't the strongest. Like even though I tried really hard, I was really bad at math. So I got like B's in math and I think I got a C in calculus. So that brought my GPA down naturally. It was definitely below the average, like a 3.5, 3.4. But what really helped my application stand out was my extracurricular activities and how I spoke about them and how I talked about them relating to my passions. I was involved in student government and I'd really talked about some initiatives that I had started on campus, just like some food drives and kind of helping. And then I also coached wrestling. When I was in community college, I took over the high school program from the high school I went to, just because one of the coaches moved to another school and some personal issues, so there was no one left to coach the program. So I kind of took over for 2 seasons while I was in community college. And that was a big thing I talked about, how that allowed me to find a passion helping youth and just building relationships with people. Doing that through wrestling was also super beneficial. I also discovered that, you know, in the future I wanted to maybe give back in some sort of way, because wrestling has given me a lot, and then I was involved in other programs that have allowed me to kind of move upward in life. And without sports and those programs, I wouldn't have advanced as I probably did. So I talked about those things really, like my extracurriculars and how they relate to my future goals in life.
What are your top 3 biggest pieces of advice to transfer students who want to make the most out of their transfer student experience?
Yeah, so that's a really great question actually. And I think it ties to a couple things. The first one is just research and preparation. Like as soon as you find out you're accepted, and I'm speaking from experience because this is what I didn't do, but really just research all the programs the school has to offer as soon as you know you're going to that school and you got accepted. So research like any transfer support centers, reach out to your counselor as soon as possible, ASAP, because they give you a counselor or a transfer counselor to make the transition smoother. So really, yeah, do your research and prepare before you go to the school. Another thing is just say yes to everything. Granted, you got to know what to say no to, right? Like to find balance, say no to whatever you don't want to do or whatever doesn't feel right in your gut, if you know that's not a good use of your time. But things where maybe you're just feeling a bit lazy and you're gonna be just sitting around at home kind of studying, but really you're just watching YouTube, you know, scrolling. Yeah, if you know you're gonna be doing that, then say yes to whatever, even if it's just going to hang out. I really made the most out of my time at Berkeley, not through clubs, mainly through music and through fitness. So just say yes to everything. Like I said yes to kind of just hosting events and trying to partner with a EDM club in San Francisco with friends and busing students over to the venue. And then, yeah, just finding community through your passions. You know, I made a lot of friends at the gym, hosted an event with Larry Wheels, and that honestly was just from saying yes.
How did you end up working with Larry Wheels? How did that opportunity?
So one of my good friends, his name's Graham. Love him. He was basically the CFO of White Rabbit Energy, which is a company that sponsors Larry Wheels. So Larry Wheels has a flavor with them. So basically, you know, this is what happened. This is how it was kind of a weird story. So Graham, he's a party animal sometimes. So I think he was like 4 a.m. and he was just plastered. And he calls up the CFO of White Rabbit because he had his number. He knew his fiance from community college. He thought he was a cool dude. He always looked up to him. So it was like 4 a.m. He was at Berkeley. He was messed up. And he calls the CFO of White Rabbit at 4 a.m. He's like, hey, I think, we can help you expand. And I think college students and college campuses are the best place maybe for this to happen. This is what Red Bull did. Me and my friend can help you. And he was talking about me and some other people, and he hadn't even told us. We were just hoping we'd say yes. And then it turns out the person that he called was also drunk at the time, playing poker with his friends. So it was just good timing. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So my friend calls me up and he's like, hey, this is what's happening. Are you down? And I was like, yeah, I'm down. I didn't know Larry Wheels was going to be involved in all this, or like the event at 420. It was like, yeah, let's do it. So we were basically just trying to increase like sales plans for liquor stores and smoke shops around college campuses. And that's how we started, like cold calling smoke shops and being like, hey, you want to sample this? And then that's basically what we were doing for them. And then kind of recruiting other people to join. And then, yeah, Larry Wheels, the opportunity popped up. My friend was like, hey, I pitched like we should do 420 here because, it's all about, weed basically. And we could have Larry Wheels come. He proposed it and they approved it. They were super hyped. Super fun weekend, man. It started off with an arm wrestling tournament at Kips in Berkeley, which is funny because Kips is just a club. We rented it out at like 5 p.m. And it was just an open invite. Anybody could come and anybody could sign up to arm wrestle. But unfortunately, it ended early because, it's not funny, but so basically what happened is there's essentially two students that went up. Both were very strong, very muscular. And when you're that strong and that muscular, but you haven't trained your tendons and your ligaments for arm wrestling, bad things can happen if you don't know the correct form. And unfortunately, one of those bad things happened. And one of the contestants snapped his arm in the middle of the match, snapped it clean, and it was just super loud. And yeah, so that was like how the weekend started. So I was stressed out, we thought the weekend was gonna be called off. We were worried we were gonna get sued. The owner of Kips was blowing me up when he heard that somebody broke their arm, and funny time. He was just like, yeah, I'll go to the hospital. You guys can pay for the bill and some extra, and I won't sue or anything. So basically settled that. And then, besides that, it was a really good weekend. Larry was out there in the middle of UC Berkeley's campus. We got him out pretty early. We had toured him around beforehand, kind of took him to the smoke shop where the drinks were at. So I handed out about 2,000 drinks that day. But yeah, it was a really good weekend. Larry was super fun to work with. I don't know if you have questions about that. Yeah.
I do have a question about Larry Wheels and that experience. I'm just curious to know more so about how is Larry Wheels as a person?
Yeah, so Larry Wheels was a super humble, down-to-earth guy. He was listening to all the Berkeley students' questions and answering them. And people were giving him business ideas and propositions. And he followed them on Instagram. He's like, yeah, talk to me about it. So he's super humble and he's very open-minded. And I think he's very wise for his age. He's pretty young, I think he's 30. I think what he values as a person, at least from the conversations we had at dinner, is definitely his marriage. He's always talking great about his wife and super loyal in terms of that. And then also just business, he's a very business-minded person and he's always looking for ways to grow and expand, his current things. The line, I think it's called PR Strength or PR Fitness. And then just talking about opening his gym in Claremont, the One Gen gym, and how he wants to expand that operation and just kind of looking for ways to grow whatever he's doing.
I'm curious though, actually transitioning from not just your side hustles, but also to your main hustle, being a career at Google.
Yeah.
How did you land that job?
Yeah, so it actually started when I got to Berkeley. I didn't know about tech until I got to Berkeley. I thought I was gonna be a lawyer, maybe a banker. But when I got to Berkeley, there was this thing called the Berkeley Skydeck. And basically it's, a startup accelerator. They fund startups. Similar to YC, they have a program that's similar, but you get, I think it's half the funds. And then my senior year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna recruit for tech sales or marketing in tech, like product marketing. So that's what I did. And my recruiting timeline was super long. I think it was like a year and a half, just because I had never recruited before and I was just applying to everything. And I knew I wanted to work at a FANG, like that was the goal for sure. It just wasn't like my housemates were working at FANGs. Like, you know, one of my like really good friend, his girlfriend was at Meta. So that's all I knew was possible. And yeah, I was just recruiting for that. My whole senior year, I think I got 3 interviews that I made it to the final round of, and I didn't get an offer. All tech sales, all like Series D startups, Series C. After that, I graduated with no job. Super stressed out for months. And then I landed an interview with Google for the Google Cloud Academy. And it's basically like a sales program, 9 months rotation, and then you go into full time, and it's basically an accelerator, like to kind of get you up to speed to cloud sales, because it's typically, you know, to be a BDR you need like 2 or 3 years of sales experience at Google. Yeah, so it's kind of a ramp up program basically. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I took the interview pretty serious, and I made it to the final round, and I get an email from the recruiter about 3 weeks later, and she's like, hey, you have a time for a phone call on Friday? You know, I want to chat. Yeah, I'm gonna get the job. I'm gonna move to Atlanta or Chicago, which is where the jobs were at the time. And you know, I'm set for the next few years. I'm like, oh, finally. And then I get the phone call. I step outside, the recruiter calls, and she's like, hey, you know, we love talking to you, but unfortunately, you know, you didn't make the cut. And I was like, dang, so you scheduled a phone call? And so I was pretty like bummed out. And then eventually I got a job at US News doing sales. Did that starting January of this year, 2024. And then I saw this Google program open back up. And then I hadn't applied for any other jobs since I got this US News job. And then, yeah, so I reapplied. They gave me an interview again. And this time the interview process was a lot more streamlined, I think, because I had made it to the final in the previous year. And yeah, this time, same thing, same recruiter, same wording in the email. She was like, hey, you have time for a phone call on Friday? Same thing. I was like, oh, definitely didn't get it again. I was like, yeah, it's done, it's cooked. She calls me and she's like, oh, congrats, you got an offer. I was like, oh, wow. So yeah, so now then I you know, packed my bags, moved from LA. I was working remote to Atlanta, and that was 4 months ago. So yeah.
And then I'm also curious, like, what do you do outside of work?
I would say music is like, you know, what I'm most passionate about right now outside of work. I love to produce, although I'm not the best at it. You know, when I started making music, it started with you know, with throwing parties, but also with working at shows. And that's really where my passion started. One of my good friends, his name is Nick Hill. He was like, yo, my brother, he works with this promoter in San Francisco. His name is DJ Dials. You know, they need an extra body to help lug around speakers on a boat party. And I was like, that sounds fun. I was like, I'm down. So we show up, and it's like, I thought it was just going to be a little boat. No, it was like this massive cruise ship that they basically rented out to throw a rave on. And we're just hauling around speakers. And then I'm like, I thought we were going to be done after that. So I was like, okay, like, do we leave, or, you know, we wait for the boat to come back and then we help unload them? And he was like, no, you guys go have fun. I hadn't really heard anything too deep, you know, I was just listening to some Skrillex and, you know, Martin Garrix and David Guetta. So I hadn't really heard like deep house music until I worked at this boat show, and it was so sick. And then once it was over, yeah, I was like, time to work, get the speakers off the boat, so at 30 minutes, or else they charged the promoter for a whole nother day. If you even went 1 minute over. Funny story, actually, one of the boat parties, I think it was like the third one, there was a Joe K, he was DJing from like Selection, and the promoter comes, he's like, yo, like, one of the security guards is out, can you just stand backstage for a bit, you know, 30 minutes, just make sure everybody has their wristband before they go back. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go back there and just checking people's wristbands, everything's okay. There's this one dude who walks in, doesn't have a wristband. I was like, hey man, can I see your wristband? Super chill. And then he like looked at me and was like super offended. And I was like, oh, I just need to see your wristband. And he was like, who the fuck do you think you are? You know? And I was like, whoa, man, I'm just asking to see your wristband. Long story short, he gets in my face and he's like trying to telling me he'll kick my ass, and I don't know what to say. So I was like, oh, I just like called him some names, you know. I was like, what do I do? This guy starts pushing me, and he's like in my face telling me like I'm, you know, gay and stuff. Like, it's kind of funny. Yeah, long story short, he ends up being like this Bay Area rapper that I didn't know about because I was new to the Bay Area. In San Francisco. His name was Pilo. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of him. Pretty fun. And then to top it off, my friend Nick Hill, he takes a picture of us arguing, and then I don't have the picture on me, but then instead of like backing me up, it's super funny. He like, as soon as we're done, he's like, yo, can I have a picture with you? And I was like, oh, super funny like memory, like saying yes to stuff, like you just random stuff happens and good times to laugh on. Yeah, and then after that, he apologized and I was like, yeah, all good, all love, and went our ways. But yeah, super funny time.
In 2019, what would you tell that Daniel if you knew what you were doing right now?
That's a good question. You know, because at the time I was super lost. Like, honestly, it would just be like, just keep working hard and it's all gonna work out, and just say, yeah, don't be lazy. You know, and that's honestly all I would say to myself. You know, there's always different paths you're gonna take and it's all random at the end of the day. It's all based off chance. And it's like, you know, what are you going to stumble upon really is like the question. So, you know, just have faith that it's all gonna work out.
Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for being on this. And thank you for sharing your story and your insights.
Yeah, for sure.
How you fought below. More importantly, too, how you are right now, especially coming from, you know, a single parent household too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, thanks for kicking it today. It was super fun. Yeah, I mean, it was fun checking out both offices and we went for a walk in the beach. Super sick. Yeah. And what did we talk about with? There was Brad Pitt. He fell off.